The second session speaker is Dr. Vishwanath Kokonda. On behalf of Department of Commerce and Business Management, Mahatma Gandhi, I, IR Kalyani, research scholar, welcome the speaker of the second session, Dr. Vishwanath Kokonda. Sir holds a PhD degree, MBA, MSc Psychology degree, MS IT degree from UK, and SFA SPC degree. He is a serial entrepreneur specialized in digital marketing and staffing. He is an author, an award-winning coach. He has represented India at Global Governance Expedition 2018 in UK. He has worked in topmost global firms. Few of them are Fortune 500 firms. He has gained experience through work, study, and visits to 16 countries across the globe. He has 500 plus social work and Melvin Jones Fellowship. He has inspired 10,000 plus people till now and is aiming to touch 1 lakh lives in future. He has received many certifications in programs like SAP, Six Sigma Belt, Black Belt, Design Thinking, Business Analytics, EFQM Business Assessor, NLP, ICF Coach, and Digital Marketing. Dr. Vishwanath Kokonda is joining us from UK. I extend a warm welcome once again, sir.
Thank you very much, madam, for this nice intro and welcoming me to this FDP session. And I also thank Dr. Ravi and Dr. Ramesh, who with whom I had interactions pertaining to this FDP. Thank you, right? Dr. Ramesh, Dr. Ravi, madam, and all the MG University Commerce and Department, Commerce and Business Management Department stakeholders. Thank you for inviting me to share some insights on the theme of this particular event. And also, good morning, participants. It's 6 a.m. here in London. That's why I'm saying good morning. And you people are almost at the verge of getting into lunch. So I should say good afternoon to you. Okay. So this topic actually is a very important topic. And when I agreed to speak on this topic, I know I had to do some further research in addition to what I know. Here, pretty much I moved away from India 2.5 years back, and I'm in a different world, doing different things and working with different people. I mean, I'm in that mode now. And when I had to specifically address about the digitalization aspect of entrepreneurship, let me tell you, probably yesterday I could spend around 9 to 10 hours of time because I know I'm speaking to learning minds and keen minds and progressive minds and professionals and such people. So I thought I should not I should be able to add value in the time allocated to me of 90 minutes. And then I actually got drenched when I was trying to prepare. And I would say today's session would be about would be specific to the rural entrepreneurship model, right, and the relevant policies and relevant actions specific to Europe, right. The intention is for us to grasp uh, or understand some things which are happening in this part of the world, and probably we could draw some insights, and we could trim them, tweak them, what do you call, tailor them, and fix it in our models there. I don't say copy, right? I say we could study and implement because they're successful models. Okay, so yeah, I'm just sharing my screen now. Okay. When I'm sharing screen or when I'm trying to play a video, if there is any issue, please give me a shout. Somebody, madam who has introduced me, so that I would quickly fall into place. I'll just try to. Okay, SMEs hold a very significant place in Europe. Madam, I hope you are able to see the screen, because I'm using Teams for the first time.
Sir, screen is not available, sir.
Okay, 1 second. I think now we are able to see, right? Yeah.
Not yet, sir. Now it is fine.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for this help. Okay, now SMEs hold a very significant place in Europe. SMEs are core of the Europe's economy and the fabric of the society. When I say the fabric of the society, it means SMEs are nothing but the aroma, or I should say the fragrance of Europe, crucial for services and local products for daily life of Europeans. See here. Friends, when I say the SMEs are fabric of this country, or when I say the aroma of this country, with all the appreciation for the country I'm born, India, for the country in which I have grown up, and the country which has shaped me, India, with all the respect for that country, what I observed in this country, in the country where I'm living and this part of the world is, when they say SME is the fabric of this country, I have very much witnessed it in its true essence. If I am in the city of London and I travel outside London to remote places, to villages, to hamlets, and far off places, even other neighboring countries, and the SME, unlike what we see in India, I had been to China as well. I mean, unlike what I've seen in India and China, I've seen the SME sector thriving here, right? The way the SMEs function, the way SMEs in rural areas, in remote places thrive, and the kind of difference they make to the economy, right? And their employees and their processes and their models, they're as robust as those SMEs which we find in urban areas. That was very surprising to me. Okay, and that's the insight for all of you, who are part of this session. So, in our part of the world, usually, when a company is based in a city or an urban place, the kind of response it receives, the kind of impact it leaves is different. I mean, that's what we experience. But I mean, on contrary to what I've seen in our part of this world, I see differently here. There's a point to be noted, and let's understand why they are like that, right? And what we could possibly do to make our enterprises, sound and look and feel like that. Okay.
Sir, PPTs are not visible, sir.
Yeah, I am toggling actually. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Just not to make monotonous, to make people stick to the PPT, I am stopping sharing and toggling. Let's see how it goes.
It's fine, sir.
Yeah.
It's fine, sir.
Yeah. So Europe's SME glimpse, 24.5 million small and medium scale enterprises, SMEs in EU, represent 99.8% of enterprises. It's pretty much, SMEs are nearly 100%, just 0.2% are large enterprises. And this country is a small country with 7 crore population, and then when you say 99.8% of the enterprises are SMEs, you can imagine, and 58% of the value added, and they employ 66.4% of the EU labor force. Okay, SMEs are considered the backbone of European economy. The prevalence and strength of SMEs has been shown to be catalyst for economic growth. For example, after the financial crisis of 2009, 2009 was a recession time. The world had a tough time. Economic recovery was benefited by a 20% increase in exports from 2012 to 2017, of which 88% were by SMEs. You understand the power of SMEs here in this country, in this part of the world, and you understand the contribution they made. Between 2012 and 2017, they made 20%. They contribute for 20% increase in exports. Right? That's the power of SMEs. Now, let's move on to the topic of the day: rural entrepreneurship and digitalization. We all are aware and we all are well informed about the digitalization gap between urban and rural areas. Europe is no exception. Unlike eastern part of the world, which is more populous and with a climate suitable for most of the year, Europe has different challenges, right? So just after this, we'll get into contemplative mode, because I'm trying to set the premises. Okay, this is about Europe, and this is about rural entrepreneurship, and with reference to digitalization in Europe. So I'm trying to set the context with the size and the scope, okay, with the challenges. So these are the challenges. Europe is definitely beautiful, and it has its own challenges specific to digitalization. Weather, right? Regulation, sparse and thin population, and it is also well-being quotient is high, and so the motivation or the spirit to do well will not seem as high as in subcontinent, and a different social system further fuels this, right? Weather, friends. I stopped sharing now for a while. See, the challenges which I refer to, there are many, there are many. I should say there are several challenges, but I only picked few, right? The weather affects everybody, everything, every sector, right? Every domain and every person here. But with reference to rural SMEs, I have picked something called weather. Now, because of the weather, for almost 5 to 6 months, people see sunlight, very, scantily, and then probably some days they don't see sunlight at all. So this part of the world, they close the shops around 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock shops are done except essential services. So nothing can happen after 6 o'clock. In remote villages, probably from 4 o'clock in the evening, 4 p.m. you don't see anything. People are are just at home. Now imagine a rural enterprise, right? In a rural, in a remote place. If an employee has to come to that place, right, and work from distance, it's a challenge, right? So when we're talking about digitalization, some aspects of digitalization need technical people, and these rural enterprises won't have access to expert technologists because of the location they are, and the weather is complementing them. Unlike in a urban location where we have public transport and people, London is 24-hour city. Even at night 2 o'clock we see people walking on the streets and it's safe. So you understand how weather meddles with the functioning of rural SMEs. Now next one is regulations. The regulations in this part of the world are very, very, very rigid. In terms of quality, in terms of compliance, they are very rigid. If somebody deviates, the penalties are very, very high. Let me tell you, as a citizen, as a normal citizen, I'm not UK citizen yet. Mistakenly, somewhere something fell from my hand on the floor, right on the street, on the footpath, and that's a green zone. It happened almost 2.5 years back, and the local council people, somebody was there. They came to me, and he had a camera on his chest, and he said, you have dumped something on the floor, and we are putting up a penalty of 150 pounds. That is 15,000 rupees of the fine, right? So I explained them it was a mistake. They said, you're grown up adult, right? And mistakes are not excusable. And I said, I'll pick it up and throw in the bin. They said, the time you cannot turn time back. You have committed a mistake and you cannot roll back. So you have to pay the penalty. So the penalty, I'm just telling you this example to, highlight the kind of penalties which are prevalent in this part of the world. So, if someone is overworking, after 6 p.m., right? In India, it's very usual that we overwork till 6, 7, 8 o'clock, and then if somebody is being compelled or rather not stopped from overworking in office, that could also result in a penalty. In the same way, the quality of the material which we use, right, in whatever things we are manufacturing, and the kind of people we have, and the way they talk over the telephone, and the times, and all the we know GDPR issues, data issues, and all these things. The regulations are very, very rigid. So the penalties cannot be bared by normal people, right? A small penalty probably could wash off a rural SMEs 1 month earnings or couple of months earnings, and that mark will be permanently on their account that this company has committed a mistake, and it will be on the records for a long time. So regulations are also very rigid. And third thing is sparse population. Now, when it is sparse population, digitalization actually is giving a solution, and digitalization in this part of the world is doing very, very well. You'll see in subsequent slides. So sparse population limits the scope of enhancing meddles with the scope of enhancing the increase of revenues. Okay, now I told the 7 crore population, and London is the most populous place, and other cities and towns and villages and hamlets are there, and uh, whatever happens in London. If you go out of London, except cities like Birmingham, Manchester, Bristol, right? For anybody to draw significant number of customers consistently is very, very challenging. Now, this country, for example, thrives on tourism a lot, and because of COVID, there is no tourism since last 8 months, and then many hotels are shut and they're for sale. Right? If anybody wants to buy a hotel now in London, this is the best time you could come and buy. Right? You could invest and buy. Okay, so the space population is under challenge, right? Which triggers just I'm going to the screen again. Yeah. So this triggers business challenges, and education, skilling, networking options get minimized. In the city of London, a lot of networking events happen. Prior to COVID, it could be Institute of Directors, it could be Lions Club, it could be Business Network International, it could be Rotary Club, it could be British Chamber of Commerce, it could be London Chamber of Commerce. You open your meetup app, and from morning 5 to night 12, there are tons of events, and you could go and network, and you could share your card, make somebody an acquaintance, take some advice, give some advice. A lot of things happen. So the space population, thin population limits that functionality, because those SME entrepreneurs in rural areas, they don't have this option of networking and additional skilling and advisory. And also, the last point is very important point, my dear friends. Well-being quotient is high, and so the motivation or the spirit to do well will not seem as high as in subcontinent. Different social system fuels this as well. So when I say the well-being quotient, when I say the well-being quotient, I mean to say the feel-good factor. because of our social system, because of the competition, because of the pride, people associate with achievements in that part of the world, right, in India. So there is a lot of motivation, there is a lot of action, there is a lot of, make in India, achieve, right, award at district level, at mandal level, at village level, at state level, central level. Many professional bodies, recognizing people. The spirit is different there, right? Here, I mean, the spirit is, I mean, altogether different, right? And that spirit which is prevailing here sometimes is not, very very encouraging and very motivating for people to do well, unless that person is self-motivated to do well, not for the sake of recognition amongst people, right, or his kith and kin, or his or his network, but really to make some difference. The kind of motivation is different here. Those people who work here, right, to do well. The intent is, kind of unifocused, rather than, multi-focused. The focus is, yes, I should really make some difference to humanity. I should really make some difference to entrepreneurial community. I should really make some difference to entrepreneurs. I should really make some difference to, agriculturists, right? I will show this screen, this video to you. I'm just trying to share that. Hope you are able to see this YouTube screen, my dear friends. Anybody could shout yes, please, madam.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. See, the source trace systems, okay. The source trace systems is one of the leading complete farm management solutions providing firm. And this company, is one of the most advanced and leading firms based in US, and they are prevalent in 20 countries now, and they're doing very well, well recognized. And who is the person behind this? The person is from Jangam, a town in Telangana. And hope you're seeing this screen, all of you. Dr. Ramesh, you're seeing this Venkata Maraju?
Sir?
Hope you're seeing this LinkedIn screen
Yes,
now.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
The source trace system is nothing but a digitalization effort to help agriculturists, and then that is from none other than this guy Venkat Maraju. He is from Jangam. He is from town Jangam. Till his 12th class, he studied in Telugu medium, and then later, he kind of done his PhD in US, and he's MIT Sloan School of Management MBA, and then he did his, prior to that he did his masters from Indian Institute of Science in mechanical engineering. And then just look at this video. Just I'll probably play for a minute. Impacting more than 1 million farmers. Friends, source trace systems impacted 1 million farmers, 10 lakh farmers in 50 countries. So, Venkat is, one amongst us from Telangana, and then, he has made rapid strides, and, he has put real efforts. And, when he started off, he had many challenges to invest and then get the products, and developed and then get approvals and then finally funding and to reach. And now many countries, agriculture ministries are behind him. You understand? That's the, benefit, and that's the beauty of, innovation, right? So now, yeah. Okay, moving on to the next screen. See, urban-rural gap is universal. Despite SME success in Europe, there remains a gap between urban and rural SMEs, leaving a potential avenue for growth underutilized. See, this gap between urban and rural SMEs, right, points to the potential avenue for growth underutilized. Okay, rural SMEs have traditionally lagged behind their urban counterparts in terms of innovation growth potential. Now, this line, if you elaborate, rural SMEs have traditionally lagged behind their urban counterparts in terms of innovation growth potential. We could actually, elaborate this. We could actually elaborate that. Now, it is talking about rural counterparts lagging behind in, innovation and growth potential. So what is, just let's understand why innovation, why innovation is getting a beating, because the setup is rural setup, right? Let me take an example. Let us take an example. Now, in this part of the world where I am now, the AI, artificial intelligence, has been powered to that extent that, if I'll take, okay, on my laptop, right, I have a Google, right, and then I'm in my home, right, secured, and then if I'm browsing something, or if I'm doing any activity on my system, right, using any email ID, right, the Scotland Yard police would be able to trace me within 30 minutes, actually, with my ID, with my address, and with my location very specifically, right? That's the beauty of innovation, right? I'm just telling it as an example. Now, if we stretch this innovation to rural entrepreneurship, now if you just take source trace system itself, right? Now, a farmer who has issues and challenges with storage, okay, if he doesn't store in time, the quality of the produce might get lost, might get disturbed, might get waned. So, with just a phone, he could see there is pickup facility from that particular storage center at some nominal cost, and then he could get it done. So all this, this particular thing has happened because this Venkat Maroju had agricultural background, right? Agricultural ecosystem around him. Though he became a mechanical engineering and technology guy, he thought in that way he could give a solution to it. So because he was in US and he had access to technology and all, and had he been, in an ecosystem where there is no access to technology and technologists, and all those people who could help him with, data, artificial intelligence and data, big data, probably he wouldn't have been, coming up with the product or service. So, our ecosystem makes us, right? When we constantly interact with people, who are treading a progressive journey, we get insights from them, they get insights from us, and then in synergy we all grow. So these urban, rural placed enterprises, I mean, they will have less insights compared to the urban insights because of the proximity, because of the access to people and advisory. Next one is the growth potential. Now, obviously, uh, I'm referring to this slide. Obviously, when innovation gets stuck, the growth potential also will get stuck. Now, for in a 8-hour day, in a 5-day week, in 40 hours, if you are able to clock, for example, X number of sales, right, with same inventory, with same infrastructure, with same team, with same payouts, and with same monthly expenses. If you can clock 150 or 140 sales plus X number of sales, right, that makes the company profitable, and it would actually make the entrepreneur have more employees and then probably have another branch. All those things happen. So growth potential will obviously get stuck. Okay. Now, however, digitalization promise is standing tall for rural entrepreneurs, but with limitations. While digitalization drives the knowledge-based economy, the geographical location of SMEs is becoming less relevant, opening the door to new opportunities and markets. Considering these trends, rural SMEs show great potential as a source of economic growth and innovation in what traditionally now been a limited market. I don't think there is much explanation or any insights, elaboration needed on this. We all know through Amazon, we're able to buy things which are being done in remote places in China, Peru, Namibia, Australia, wherever, and from wherever you are sitting, we are able to sell. All this is because of digitalization. So this slide is talking about the scope of new opportunities, right? Obviously, digitalization has opened up avenues that we all know, and digitalization takes shape in the rural entrepreneurial ecosystem with the following things, right? Now we are going a bit deeper. Okay. Now entrepreneurship is there, rural entrepreneurship is there, digitalization is there, right? We are comparatively a lot better than we were 10 years ago, and digitalization has its own challenges for rural entrepreneurs. All that is understood, right? Now let's understand this slide from the perspective of what we could do and how we could do and how we could actually stretch the digitalization for rural entrepreneurship to thrive and to sustain and to enhance further, right, and grow at a much brisker pace. So it is talking about availability. Sorry. Now, what is availability? What is it referring to? Availability of connectivity, right? Now, people in rural, locations, right? Yes, we could help them with, or they could help themselves with laptops, tablets, phones, right? They are all nowadays available at a very affordable cost, right? And then the issue is connectivity, right? Unless there is connectivity, the gadget is of no use. And the connectivity in rural areas, right, not just in India, but in this part of the world is also a challenge, right? We often experience when we go to remote place, we don't get phone connectivity, right? And this lack of connectivity discourages rural entrepreneurs from using those gadgets and availing those benefits and facilities of these digitalizations. Okay, next one is affordability. Now affordability is being able to afford a gadget, right, an app, right, or or internet, and then some paid services, right? Everything comes at a cost, right? Everything comes at a cost, nothing comes free. So entrepreneurs, rural entrepreneurs in starting stage, right, or they're who are struggling rural entrepreneurs, they have a tough time, with affordability, right? Now, suppose we need to have continuous internet connection to perform some things, and because of these fluctuations in rural areas, they might have additional line. An additional line would cost double the money, and probably they need to have bigger bandwidth, right? And then that might cost them more money. So if connectivity is there, then affordability comes in this picture. And then the third aspect is ICT in education and supportive policy programs for digital strategies. Okay, now ICT in education. Okay, now assume we have connectivity, assume we have affordability. Now, the way they have to use it, is also a challenge. We often experience on our phones, right? We forget our password, and then it will ask us our registered email ID, and then we should be able to type very meticulously, right, without any spaces, without any extra things on the phone, even on the laptop. And then if something goes wrong, it might, all these challenges. And sometimes they'll ask, the system will ask questions like, memorable questions. I mean, randomly we fill something and we forget, right? I mean, they might ask your pet name or your mother's maiden name or your first school or some memorable word. So now, troubleshooting, when you have challenges with technology, is another big. So cache, right, on the browser would also be challenged, and you get something updated on your web, and then you don't see on your screen, and your web guy says yes, done the update, and you don't see that. You shout at him, he shouts at you. All these things do happen. We are expected to know how to clear the cache, right? So, and there is also, online banking facility. People pay through apps, and then checking all the payments on the apps, right? And to refresh on all that, all this needs education. So unless there is education, there is no use of connectivity and affordability. So now this availability is talking about supportive policies and programs by the government for digital strategies. Now, there should be initiatives by either government or concerned bodies, to educate people. And all the knowledge which we have, we cannot dump on somebody in one day, right? We learn things with time. We learn things with uh, by becoming more and more familiar with it. We cannot learn what all we could do using a laptop. And especially for me, internet came probably. I mean, when I just finished my post graduation in 1994, 1995. So we had to stand in lines with one or two internet centers in Warangal, and then we had to wait for 1 hour and pay 100 rupees per hour. And at a touch of a button, the next screen used to come probably after a couple of minutes. You understand? So it took time. We didn't know how to attach a document, and we didn't know how to use MS Word, and we didn't know how to use Excel. So it all took time. And uh, for a person with no great formal IT education, otherwise was smart as entrepreneurs, right? For them to adopt to these things will take time, and so that needs education and support and right policies by government and appropriate statutory bodies. The next one is enabling conditions, complementing use of internet, media, digital things, support for entrepreneurs and innovation culture. So yeah, now once these availability with connectivity, affordability, education and support system are there, it also needs enablers. Enablers are like, you know, wait. Enablers are, look, if you pay digitally. You might have 1% off, right? If you put pay by through direct debit, you might, I mean, for 1 year commitment, you might get 5% off. Okay, and we don't accept anything on paper. Everything should be on email, right? So whichever companies are actually using no paper policy, those companies should be given some tax credit. So all these are examples of enabling actually companies to go digital. Okay. Next is let's understand the divide. The urban and rural gap is called digital divide, right? In this local context. So let's understand it. Digitalization of entrepreneurial ecosystem involves the risk that the potential benefits will be unequally distributed between rural and urban areas, gender, youth population. Urban areas often have better developed digital ecosystems. Please note this point. Note this. Keep a note of this word, digital ecosystem, right? Which means resources, skills, and networks compared with rural area. Combined with global trends of urbanization and middle and rich classes settling in cities, there is a potential for digitalization to exacerbate the existing rural-urban disparities and populations to fall behind in the process of digital transformation. FAO is committed to assist. FAO is a local body in UK to assist governments and partners bridging such multidisciplinary digital divides to ensure that everyone benefits from the emerging digital society. So the crux of this particular slide is digital ecosystem, okay, which refers to resources, skills, and networks. Okay, now the gap between urban and rural, ecosystems frameworks, or is nothing but the digital ecosystem, which is referring to resources, skills, and networks. Resources are it could be gadgets, it could be people who could help you with those gadgets and technology, it could be skills, and it could be networks. Networks is all those uh, you know uh, all those people and bodies and the processes which will help you thrive. So that is being referred to digital ecosystem. So digital ecosystem is strong and robust in urban localities, right? Let me tell you with another example. Now I understand most of the participants, I'm sure, are teachers, right? Management teachers, and some of you might be students as well. So you might have heard a word called learning ecosystem. Right now, as teachers, you teach to students. They come to class, and out of 366 working days, you have 180 plus working days, and remaining days are holidays. Okay, for exams and festivals, and then whatever. So in these 180 days, we teach them, and we expect them to understand, remember, learn, and reproduce. Right now, the new buzzword is learning ecosystem. So universities and then colleges and all the people behind education, right? They have to create learning ecosystem. Learning ecosystem is nothing but, in learning ecosystem, the college or university will be one significant part. One important part will be the place of learning. It could be university or college, but it will be complemented with library. It could be complemented with e-learning. It could be complemented with chatbot. It could be complemented with a mentor, on-demand mentor, or it could be complemented with group coaching session, or it could be complemented with buddies in the form of senior and junior, right, or with alumni. So having the student connected to all these things forms his learning ecosystem. So in his 24 hours of time, right, where where 8 hours is left for his sleeping and another 2 hours for his whatever other thing. So remaining 12 to 14 hours, he's expected to be in this learning ecosystem in constant touch with what actually will help him while he pursues education, and then subsequently he should help himself and the company he works for as an employee or an entrepreneur, or then his family and this country and this globe. You understand? That is learning ecosystem. In same way, digital ecosystem is what we have just touched upon. This is a I could not actually trim it because each sentence was important in the slide. Just don't read the slide, right? So some facts are even the remotest areas in UK, they don't have infrastructure like FiberNet and 5G. Okay, and these shortfalls are there. Also some disadvantages, right? Even though SMEs are having such disadvantages, rural SMEs have disadvantages, it's understood that rural SMEs achieved higher growth rates, longer lifespans, and higher exports than their urban counterparts. This is the important part. That's why I've highlighted in red. Though they're lagging behind in having robust digital ecosystem, but still they have achieved higher growth rates, longer lifespans, and higher exports. Okay. Further, in the same study, it was shown that rural SMEs experience some challenges related to, access to finance, higher taxes, regulations, and red tape, had more difficulties with recruiting skilled laborers. Right? These examples indicate that given support, rural SMEs have the potential and as successful as urban SMEs. Okay. Hope you're with me, right? In the previous slide, they're talking about poorer digital ecosystem is not meddling with the growth and the contribution which SMEs have been making to the country, right? In this to Europe, right? They're doing very well, though they lack. But the study also made them understand that they don't have access to additional funds. They don't have access to advisory. They don't have access to even skilled labor, because people we thrive in India. We thrive in cities like Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai, Mumbai, right? And hardly people though there are 100 smart cities, right? Only probably 10 of them are
Sir, sorry
happening
for
in
interrupting. We're not able to see the slides, sir.
Yeah, I'm actually toggling between. I'm stopping sharing now. Hope you're seeing my video now.
No, sir. Yeah, you are visible, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I'm intentionally actually not to, make people kind of sleep on
Okay, sir.
slides. I put them off. I don't know. That's my pattern. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Yeah. And this we could address later. This is a key study. Okay. Okay. As per the study by Rural England and Scotland's Rural College, called SRUC, commissioned by Amazon. Right. This study was conducted by Amazon. Right. This survey was conducted on 800 rural entrepreneurs, and it's nothing but sample. It's a small sample, and they want to draw insights to extrapolate the findings on the larger, rural entrepreneur market size. Rural businesses are embracing the digital economy but face barriers to digital adoption due to lack of skills and access to training to rural areas. A consultation of over 100 rural businesses found that almost 4 in 5 rural business owners believe digital tools and services are most important to the future growth potential. So 4 in 5 rural business owners believe that digital tools are important for them. So that's almost 90+%. Okay, that's good. And then they opine, 62% of them opine that cloud computing is seen as a biggest driver, and 54% of them have seen that 5G mobile networks are important to them, and 47% of them felt out of this 800 Internet of Things is important for them, and then 26% of them felt that machine learning and artificial intelligence are key for them. So these numbers, if you see, is quite appreciated, right? Though they don't have any formal education, right? They're able to understand and interpret the buzzwords like cloud computing, IoT, 5G, machine learning, artificial intelligence. Okay, now rural business owners who said e-commerce plays a big role with 80% using digital tools and services to trade abroad. The top export destinations in rural business are the EU 84%, followed by US 45%. Okay, the top export destinations for rural business are EU 84%. So that's quite high, followed by US 45%. In addition, 43% of all rural businesses specifically sell online through their own site or via third-party site, with the top two sectors using e-commerce being retail 80% and accommodation and food sector 71%. Oh, sorry. The research finds that rural businesses are typically family-run, home-based, owned by people aged over 55 years old, and employing fewer than 10 people. Exactly the type of businesses that can gain from using digital technology to expand their productivity. Okay, every day we see digital technology leveling the playing field between businesses operating in the urban and rural parts of the country, whether that's exporting locally produced goods or used cloud computing to scale their business. Here, in the previous slide and this slide, you could see the numbers, and you could see you could get the idea of demographics, right? Stating, right, 43% people sell online. 43% is nearly 50%, half of the people in rural areas are selling online. That's, India is way behind. If you compare, just for example's sake, and then the top two sectors are e-commerce and then accommodation and food sector. Accommodation refers to this is holiday country, right? People come from across the world. They would like to stay in remote areas in the countryside, alongside lakes and all. So accommodations are doing well, and also the food sector. Research also finds that they're mostly family-run, home-based, owned by people, elderly people, right? And then, yeah. So how is cloud computing coming to the rescue? ICE Robotics is an app, right? With sensor technologies, it monitors the fertility and health of cows used in dairy farming, enabling farmers to see alerts and visualizations of how their livestock are moving, so that they can manage their herds more productively. You understand? Because of this, ICE Robotics is nothing but a cloud computing outcome, which helps them, farmers, people who maintain livestock, to see where their livestock is, and to ensure to monitor the fertility and stuff. Cloud computing provides compute power, storage, analytics, content delivery, other functionality to help farmers move faster, lower IT costs, scale globally in minutes, and it's key to driving innovation in business. Okay, the growth potential. Okay, let's move to the next one. Barrier to growth. However, beyond issues with internet reliability and speed, over half of the rural business owners said that they face a variety of skill-related obstacles to adopting digital to unlock, such as recruiting people. Okay, now we already discussed, we could have connectivity, we could have availability, but the adaptability is not there. So we need to recruit people, and the recruiting people is a challenge. And almost a third have difficulty finding external or outsourced digital connectivity support because of lack of connectivity. 14% have difficulty accessing appropriate external digital training for existing workforce. 1 in 5 said that existing workforce lacks sufficient skills and struggle to recruit people with appropriate digital skills. So friends, Now, though though uh, though connectivity is there, though affordability is there, but issues such as you know in not able to access, not able to get in skilled resources to work for them, not able to get support of skilled resources to address their issues on time. Here, assume uh, something goes wrong in my home, right? I know you all know, but just for example's sake, I'm telling. The gas, right, stove where we cook our food goes wrong, right? We call the company, and then it goes to the customer care. Most times they don't pick up the call. We have to leave a voice message, and in the queue, our number will be in the queue, and we might get a call after 2 hours, 3 hours, or 4 hours. Until then, we have to go buy food outside, and outside shops close at 6 p.m. Not every shop will be open at 6 p.m. So you have to check internet to see which shops are open after 6 p.m. and go and buy food stuff there. You understand? So, I mean, these are the, I mean, you can imagine what happens in remote village, right, where somebody has traveled 60 miles to fix something on a system or a hardware issue or a software issue, or you understand, with limited connectivity. Okay, so Brian Wilson, chair of directors at independent think tank Rural England, says, what is striking in his research is the ambition and willingness of rural business to embrace new that could increase the global competitiveness of rural economy, right? Because of the numbers which I've seen in the previous slides, right? 43% people, 73% people, 83% people, right? Talking this language and trying to adopt and encouraging and kind of ready to go for all these things is what is called is good. Okay, and let's see some stats now. Let's see some stats. These are key statistics. Though in last decade, the digital reach with internet connectivity has grown leaps and bounds, right? This is the penetration percentage in the world, right? In last, I think this is 5-year-old data, right? And the smartphone adoption is 6%. Still, there is 7% gap, right? I mean, it's good. I mean, it's only the gap is only 7%, but still, there's still 7% gap is there in smartphone adoption. In Asia Pacific, right, eastern part of the world, like Cambodia, Singapore, Malaysia, that part of the world, 66% penetration is there, but smartphone adoption is only 54%. And then CIS, okay, it's 80 and 53, and in Europe, it's good, and in Latin America, and then MENA, North America is good actually. You see, it's the best, 83 and 80, and even Africa is better with 45 and 36. Okay, now these statistics should make us understand, should help us understand. Look, digital enablement of entrepreneurship in rural areas can only happen when the penetration is probably 80 to 90%, and then smartphone adoption is also 80 to 90%. Though the penetration is now standing on average at 60%, still adoption is staggering at 50% on average, right? So the scope is high, and with efforts are on, I'm sure these numbers would go up. And if you see the government services provided by email, SMS, and whatever, you're seeing that I mean, in Europe, right, government is trying to communicate a lot of things through emails, right, through SMS, and then through apps. Okay, and then if you see, if you see in education, right, across the world, the communication is very high. digitally. And if you see, only the health part is less for Oceania, but otherwise, in Europe, you see the communication all-time high, right? Nearly at 80%, right? Nearly at 91%, right? On average, probably it's 82, 83%. The communication digitally is very high. So we get emails about from income tax officer, from bank, and then we correspond through emails, all that. It's referring to that. And then if you move on to the next screen, the ability of rural entrepreneurs, this is also based on a survey, right? On simple things which they could do, copying or moving a file to a folder. Only 50%. In urban areas, it's 50%, and in rural areas, it's 41%. Still, there is 9% gap. Not, you understand? It's just copying a file or moving into a folder. Sending emails with attached files. We see a gap of still, 12%. Transferring files between a computer and other devices. Yes, you see this gap, 50, 49, and 36. Using copy and paste tools. Okay. Finding, downloading, installing, and configuring software. Using basic arithmetic formulas in spreadsheet. Yeah, even I am poor in this. Still, I struggle using arithmetic and formulas in spreadsheets. Creating electronic presentations. Connecting and installing new devices. Writing computer program, of course, this is low. You see, if you refer to the slide of penetration, right, which is on average at 60%. Still, there is a gap between what an urban entrepreneur could do and what a rural entrepreneur could do, though there is connectivity, affordability, right, and because of the technical gap, technical know-how gap, this is prevailing. Okay, so friends, we are probably, coming to the end of this session. Probably in another 10 minutes, I'll be closing this, and we could have any conversation, any question answers to make this session worthwhile. What is the way forward? Okay, we discussed a lot, or I should say, reasonably, about scope of digitalization, right, and what is complementing digitalization, and in this part of the world, what are the challenges, and then what they're doing, and yeah, I tried my level best to in this session to hang to minimum jargon and minimum number of points for us to get deeper into the domain of digitalization in rural entrepreneurship, right? Because there are many terms to talk, and there are many processes, and there are many models to refer, but what happens in the sessions, if we discuss all of them, the core actually wanes and vanishes, and that's why I wanted to stretch all the participants' thoughts on the concept of this rural entrepreneurship and possibly enhance. Okay, so now we are moving into the final part. Okay, what is that we could do to further enhance this digitalization to complement rural entrepreneurs? Don't get into this reading, right? I didn't have time yesterday, and I quickly prepared this PPT. Just look at the part one, right? IT infra. Just remember IT infra. Okay. Now, see, rather than, I'll just tell with an example. I use this example many times now. I mean, it's not a relevant example, but it's relevant as well, right? We encourage people, in India, right, to put a seat belt when they drive their cars, and there is also penalty now. People, they don't put on seat belts. Okay, now you hope you're familiar with those cars. which actually made beep sound when people if they don't put on the seat belt, right? So the person is compelled to actually put on the seat belt. You understand? That comes from the ecosystem, right? People want to be careful, people want to be safe, but people are not habituated, and they might not see the importance or significance of putting on seatbelt when they drive, and then small beep because of the torture in the ears, they put on the seatbelt, right? To go a bit further, now there are cars coming up which won't even start. You can't put on the ignition unless you put the seatbelt, so you can't even move your car. You understand? So now, why I told this example is to, you know, refer to the infrastructure for rural entrepreneurs. The infra should be so powerful, right? So robust, so accessible, so friendly, right? And so easy, and also so easily adoptable that, you know, people should come forward and easily, and they should become, you know, that's where they should actually become handicapped to do their, I mean, bare minimum essential things without digitalization. That actually expedites. And when I'm telling this, I'm not trying to rush up, or I'm not trying to be very forceful on uh, you know, rural entrepreneurs, right? But I'm only trying to expedite, you know, because you know, I know the value of time. You know, I recollect my time of when I just finished my MBA, and I have put up 25 years of experience now. Oh my God, I feel time has just passed so quickly. So, when I don't say I will be in a rush, but now I'm not in a time waste mode. So now I always think in the lines of maximizing, right, the outcome of the time frame which one has. So right, the infra should be made, you know, viable in the lines of how, you know, we were speaking, how I was talking, how I was trying to present few minutes back, which actually compels everybody to go digital, right, and then adopt it. The second one I'm referring to is education attainment, digital literacy and employment in rural areas. Okay. Now, I'm sure, you know, I keep it. I'm a market watch guy. I keep an eye on what's happening in India. However, I'm in this part of the world, and I'm an entrepreneur, so I keep an eye on what's happening. So the digital literacy part, right, is so vibrant, is so, you know, model is so dynamic that if I want to volunteer, right, uh, uh, enriching, you know, rural entrepreneurs with any facet or any dimension of technology, right? Government gives me, you know, bursary. Government gives me funding. Government pays me for the service, right? So people are encouraged, and all the colleges and the universities, right, which are prevalent in this country, and all the registered and recognized training institutes, if they have any program which could help digital literacy of these rural entrepreneurs, right, or people in agriculture, right, this country has funded programs for them, right? All you know, all the rural entrepreneurs need to do is just come and attend. The government pays a fee, and the training company gets their money from the government, and that guy who pursues education will get the necessary training, right? Which could help him. Understand? And the the follow-up mechanism, you know, we you know, often hear, right, you know, right, raat gai baat gai, right? So we do our masters by, you know, slogging, by, you know, not sleeping nights before examination, and once we finish examination, I mean most people most people don't touch their book at all, right? We undertake trainings and certification, and then we try very hard, we score 80, 90, and then we clear the certification, and then we never touch that book at all. So here there is something called CPD, Continuous Professional Development System, where if you pursue some bridge courses, some advanced courses, you get some credits, and those credits can be claimed. And wherever you go, if they see your CPD hours are high, they understand that this guy is learning oriented, right? That's why people allocate time for learning, and people keep learning, which will help them polish their present skills, get new skills, and then when they have new skills, they talk well, they help themselves, they talk well, and that's how they move the thread. And then third one is policies and programs for enabling digitalization in rural areas. Okay, just going back, first one I referred to was infrastructure, second one I referred to was educational attainment, third one is policies and programs, right? Now I am just moving to this slide. So this is a slide which I wanted to refer. Now you're seeing the slide, you're seeing Skills Plus, you're seeing InnoGrow, you're seeing SARUR, you're seeing Rural Growth, you're seeing Grow Up, you're seeing Rural SMEs, you're seeing Ratio, you're seeing PIRIS, you're seeing SOC and SPAS. Okay. Now each of this initiative, right, by the government has a deeper purpose. Now, a single body cannot cater to all the necessities of the rural entrepreneurship and digitalization. For example, here, right, if you see, the project InnoGrow focuses on refining regional policies that promote adoption of technology and business model innovation by rural economy SMEs. Okay, enhancing competitiveness is the focus of the Skills Plus project, right? Rural Growth project focus on SMEs in their rural visitor economy. Okay, and SARUR is a project that gathers best practices to ensure survival of rural shops. And Grow Up brings Europe's outmost regions such as Canary Islands, right? Regions which are way far, and then works with them. And SOC and SPAS project seeks to improve regional competitiveness and inclusive growth through policies that focus on social enterprises. So, my dear friends, I am trying to refer to this point that the policy framework, right, has come up with a particular policy with a body and a detailed policy and framework for each challenge which an SME in rural area might face, and then each of it is a body. Now if I get into skills, it's a bloody 100-200 page document, right? And there are experts, there are propagators, there's a team, and behind each of these initiatives, and all of these people, right, stakeholders behind each of these initiatives work in synchrony, work in synergy. They try to they try to realize the holistic outcome in the form of the intended objective for rural enterprises. Okay, so yeah, now the way forward for Indian entrepreneurs is, okay, I think I am left with only 10 minutes now. Okay, so let's come out of this rural entrepreneurship and digitalization in Europe for a while. Okay, let's park it for a while. Okay, now let's touch upon the aspect of entrepreneurship. Right, entrepreneurship with specific to rural is what we could keep in mind, and obviously digitalization is what it drives. So my take from my stints here and my take from my stints in India is here these people have enough funds to go very deep into the subject, Right? They have access to funds. And in India also we have access to funds, but sometimes it's a huge country, developing nation with a lot of challenges, like climate challenges, and then water challenges, and then many other challenges. So probably I feel the budget which we allocate to understand these things probably should get enhanced, and probably that those things will happen going forward. But the stakeholders like you as teachers and as students, right? We could become pioneers by taking example of Venkat Maraju, and we could actually go deeper, right? And then prepare prototypes, and then do a thorough research, and then propagate these to concerned bodies, and those things will work, and this effort should be on. Okay, that's pointer one. And pointer two is we do too many things back home, too many things, right? I'm this, I'm that, I'm that, I know that, I know this, right? We want to showcase that we know many things, and we seek pride in doing that. If people who don't do that, I salute to you. Right? I appreciate you. It's not for everybody, but it's micro specialization. If you say I'm specialized in marketing and finance, they say thank you very much, take care, that's it, right? They don't care you. So here, if you say I am specialized in marketing, still you see their perplexed face, right? They want to know whether you're specialized in products or services or market research or branding or lead generation or marketing automation, you understand, or rural entrepreneurship or rural entrepreneurship specific to technology. They want to know what exactly you're expert at, right? Not just marketing, you understand? So I know we also have micro specializations. I know that's thriving, but I think that should get more deeper, in the students' mindsets, and and they should actually imbibe and kind of dwell on it. Okay. Third thing is the involvement when we get into something. The involvement, right? Yes, the concern is there. Yes, rural entrepreneurs should be helped. The concern is there, right? With the concern, what we could do, right? We could talk to them, we could feel for them, we could feel bad for them, we could feel empathy for them, we could feel sympathy for them. There's not enough, right? They need action. If somebody is hungry, they need food, right? They know, the hungry man doesn't need our empathy, sympathy, our tears, or our feelings for them. They need food. Hungry man needs food. So a viable solution is needed, right? So let's not think about solution for complete India, right? We could think solution for rural entrepreneurs in and around MG University. Just in and around MG University, probably in 50 kilometers radius, right? We could pick sample of 100 entrepreneurs, right? And backed by the experienced and capable and vision-oriented MG University staff, right? And then the intellectual capital of them, complemented by the research scholars and students, right? You could make wonders. And once that becomes a user case study, that could be replicated and extrapolated, and then that could become a reference model for other universities, for other colleges to follow. And that's how we could actually create a bigger impact. You understand? So yeah, friends, this is what I wanted to share. Hope this was helpful, and for those people who could not connect to what I shared, please understand that purposefully this session was planned like this, right? I'm sure if you could not appreciate today, going forward, you'll be able to appreciate the line of action or the direction which I've taken today. Yeah, I'm ready for questions now. We are left with 4 minutes. Yeah. By the way, I can be, reached at yeah, these are my credentials. I'm at LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. This is how you all can reach at me. You will respond in a day or two, right, with any of your questions, for general interaction, to be in touch. Okay, go ahead, people. You could ask questions, please. No questions? Some question should be there, my friends. Question adds to the flavor of the session.
Sir, this is Dr. Gurvishal Sinha. I want to ask one question, that in London, what type of the premier industries, SMEs, are now popular in that area, which can be started by an entrepreneur in India as well, in the rural areas, basically in sectors, with the capacity which India is having?
Dr. Sinha, right? Yeah,
Yes,
Gurvishal
sir.
Sinha. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes.
It's a very good question, in fact, and I have to say I do not have the answer for, but what I would do, right? I am also business advisor, okay, for some firms, and also in Queen's Mary University of London, and also in Greenwich University. So when I don't know the answer for a question, right, there is a way to get the answer, right? The answer is, right, to check Google Trends. If you go into Google Trends, you would get specifically information on, I could share, but I think we're running out of time. Just remember Google Trends.
Okay.
GOOGLETRENDS, and you can get trends of sales of each and every product, geographical,
Okay.
location wise, industry wise, domain wise, country wise, right, time wise, day wise, week wise.
Okay, sir.
Google Trends is where I go. Okay. Second thing I would do is I would do a pilot. Okay. Now I stopped asking questions nowadays, because business is dynamic, right? Business is not a formula. There is no formula for success in business, right? What is yesterday will not be today and will never be tomorrow. So
Yes.
now if I ask somebody a question, what is in demand today, that could probably a most probable answer, but not the right answer, and that right answer will obviously change very soon. So I will go to Google Trends, I'll do a quick survey by spending money, I do paid campaign, and I get quick insights from geographical location I want to enter. For example, I want to sell something to entrepreneurs in US. So I do a campaign on LinkedIn, I spend $1,000, because time is money. When I spend $1,000, I get probably 200-300 CEOs replying to me, because it's a paid campaign, and because there is a benefit to them, because they answer my questions, and then I collate all that in a tool, and it's okay, this is what 200 entrepreneurs are thinking. Out of 200, 100 people say no, 50 people said yes, 40 people said we want to go ahead. So I'll drop the idea. You understand, Dr. Gurvishal?
Yes, sir. So it is advisable that we use social media portals for it. That means a campaign or a drive like that.
No, social media campaign is one thing. Now, if you post on your Facebook or Insta, nobody would answer you, right?
Okay.
So you have to post on LinkedIn, try for serious reasons, and
Okay.
they should see value in your question, and they should see value in the person who's putting the question.
Okay.
Now, if I'm a value creator on LinkedIn, they see me as a respectable man, and when a respectable man poses a question, people feel obliged to answer. You understand?
Okay, sir.
And sometimes I put rewards. If they answer, I put a reward of $10 gift voucher,
Okay.
and then I get all my answers, because asking 10 people, everybody will be telling what they think, and most people don't know the answer, and I'll be squandering my time and money. So now I'm in the mode of Google Trends, Second is do a campaign by spending money, get my answers in 2 days, and then move ahead. And my failures have decreased now. My failure percentage has decreased, and my success percentage has increased with this now.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Yes, any more questions? Okay. Thank you, sir. On behalf of Department of Commerce and Business Management, NGO, I would like to propose vote of thanks to Dr. Vishwanath Kokonda for sharing his views about rural entrepreneurship in digital era. Sir has discussed the role played by technology in rural entrepreneurship, the gap between urban and rural entrepreneurship, different relevant examples he has given explaining the use of technology in every area, importance of digital education, policies and practices of governments in other countries to aid rural entrepreneurship, and social innovations which resolve societal challenges, the limitations in India regarding rural entrepreneurship and solutions that can be followed. Thank you very much, sir, for taking your valuable time with us for this session. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, madam, and thank you very much, Dr. Ramesh and Dr. Ravi, and all the MG University Department of Commerce and Business Management stakeholders who have envisioned this particular nicest theme for this, FDP. And I wish you the university further great going in the value creation journey. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you, sir. Now I request all the participants to leave the session and join back exactly at 1:50 p.m. for session 3. Thank you.